I'm not looking for a utopia in the world, but there's a way that you can deal with the reality of what's going on in the world. And there's a utopia there. There's a utopic reaction. The world is like you said, it's always going to be what it is. It's been that way for millions of years. But we have perfected. Enlightenment is a perfected response to what's going on in the world. Do you follow?
And
there have been periods of time where there have been more enlightened beings in the world, where the negatives was not exaggerated to the extent that they are now. Like there may be less enlightened people in the world right now. You follow? So you have more violence, more mayhem, more destruction of nature, more destruction of the environment. You have that going on as it has not gone on in the past. So there's always going to be problems, but I think the enlightenment is the response to that. It's not building a false utopia in the world, but it's responding what I would say utopically. It's a utopic response. Versus you becoming a part of the disease. You follow what I mean? Because to me, the disease is a part of the disease is victim consciousness as well. Because everybody that's participating in the mayhem that is actually going on, they consider themselves to be a victim of some sorts. You follow? So that's a part of it. You know, the victimization and the desire for personal power above everything else. That's going on in the world right now. I think that it's not about changing the world in that sense and finding a utopia in the world, but not being the problem by where one ascends to within their own consciousness and what comes from that, what their contribution is going to be. Whether there's going to be more of the thing that they have a problem with, you know, the selfishness and you know, the lack of empathy. Are they going to be more of a contribution of that, or are they going to bring something else into the world? I don't think it's what you perceive that's going on in the world and what others are doing, as much as it is how you react. Because I can react violently, I can react in a controlling manner, I can act in a destructive manner, and I think that's more important than how we perceive anything. It's how we act. We don't agree with what's going on in the East, so we bomb them. We don't agree with people's cultural ideas or however they choose to live their life, so we destroy them. I think that's the issue. It's how you act based on your perceptions. And where that desire is originating from, you follow? I think that's a bigger issue. And I think when you get to an enlightened level, you don't see a different world in that sense, but you are at a level where you can respond in a way that is not the same as within the same quality of what you are reacting against. You see what I mean? Like they say, you know, they talk about the killings and everything in Chicago, but it's okay, did we solve these killings by killing those that kill? You see what I mean? So I think that it's not. Yes, those killings are happening. Yes, these our perspective of what is negative, whether right or wrong, is going on in the world. But how are we responding to it? Is our response the implementation of the quality of negativity that we want to see removed from the world? Are we responding? Are we angry? You follow? Are we mad? Are we responding out of why people do the shit that they do? Are we coming from the same place within ourselves? And I'm talking about the utopic space within oneself, where one can witness the world and themselves simultaneously in a way that they don't respond, they don't recreate the world that they hate through how they respond to the world. But I think if we understand what's going on in the world, if we don't see anything wrong with the hate, if we don't see any people doing stuff out of, you know, their victim consciousness, they're doing stuff out of them being vengeful or whatever they went through. You follow? And that's why everybody is doing what they're doing in the world. And we agree that that one should respond in this particular way. Then why are we mad at all? Why do we have any problem with what's going on with the world at all? Why do we have any problem? Because that's what America is doing. They feel attacked here and they attack back, and they feel self-righteous in who they are, and so they do what they do. And if we agree that these are natural emotions and that a human being should be this way or this is acceptable, why do we have a problem with the world at all? Mm-hmm. Unless we do want to see something different, and then that's going to cause us to be something different. And then we can no longer make excuses for being angry and being, you know, the very byproduct of the things that we don't want in the world. We can't keep making excuses for it and at the same time be unhappy with the ultimate conclusion of what's going on in the world. Because people, they feel very justified in things that when we see the type of shit they do, we see that the anger and the violence and the things that come from that, no one agrees with it. But those same person that disagree with it would tell you, well, you know, anger is a good thing. You follow? Was it good that the Oregon shooter went up in the school building, you know, and shot everybody up? Was that a good thing? He just was angry, and he was justified, I guess, right? He just was mad that day, and he found a way to creatively express his anger, right?
No, that's terrible.
Right. So it's like we got to go back to the source and say, you know what? Disagreement doesn't have to mean anger, or difference does not have to be anger. It does not have to result in violence or destruction. And change that response. Because the world is, like you said, it's always been what it is. But what we can say is people may be more angry about it, which causes it to destroy at an exponential rate. You follow the acceleration in death and destruction is at an increased rate. Because people are not okay with being not okay. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
And they have to, you know, act out violence and destruction in that sense. So it's not changing the world. And I think the world will change as more people start turning off from being mad or dealing with their anger or whatever is going on within themselves. I think people will just start turning off one by one versus turning up one by one. You feel me? They'll start turning off in a way where all this violence in the world will subside. People still going to feel the way they do, but the violence will subside. I look at the incarceration rate of black people in America, and I mean, it's ridiculous. Every crime that's going on in America, like you said, it has been going on since the beginning of time. Why does America have the largest prison population in the world at this time? You follow? They're not taking that attitude, particularly when it comes to black people. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
So they have to change that. That means some change have to happen on as far as the judgment is concerned as it relates to people, a particular people, forgiveness as it relates to a particular people. You follow? And peaceful indifference, because their behavior is showing hatred. You know, lock these niggas up. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's what's going on right now in society, in a way that it has not been going on. It's just reaching an all-time high. So there are changes that we can make, and they're made on a personal level. I'm not even just blaming I'm not blaming the white man. I'm saying that every individual has to go within themselves and address what's inside of them and see, does that look like what they don't like in the world? And they're going to have to divorce from whatever their ethnic group is, whatever their gender group is. They're going to have to divorce being a part of that political complaint group. You follow? Mm-hmm. And just get down within themselves and deal with the pure reality of anger, you know, of jealousy, of resentment, of all of these different situations in consciousness. But it's more pleasurable to identify with one's gender group one's ethnic groups, one political group, their class group, their education group, you know, their state, their country. It's more pleasurable to be involved in these types of, you know, mobs than it is to really go in your house and close the door and say, you know what, that's a lot of anger I got right there. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm mad as hell. And use the world as a platform for one to realize their own selves, and not as one to get caught up in a stream or a wave of whatever, a tidal wave of whatever types of energies that's going on, whatever the emotional trend is. You follow? This whole black man gay shit, that's an emotional trend that men have copped into. That's not who they are. Easy to get on these emotional trends, whether it's man hatred, woman hatred, you know, race hatred. These are just nothing but emotional trends that human beings have collectively co-signed, and they just getting on the roller coaster versus really going home, closing their door and saying, you know, what am I feeling and how I'm contributing to what I don't want to be in the world. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to be human anymore, but that means we use our humanity as a tool to educate us into our higher beingness. So that I'm going to get mad, but then I look at that anger and say, you know what, that's anger. Let me learn from this. I'm going to be judgmental. I'm going to be prejudiced. I'm going to be all of these things, but will I use them as a tool to go beyond them? You follow?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a fireman using fire to put out fire. Use this world to transform your karmatic state as a human being, to transform your inner being. Use the world as for that. Don't try to fix stuff out here, but use the world to fix stuff within yourself. If we get more people doing that, there will be a change in the world. The desire for a utopia out here is selfish. If I'm looking for my utopia in this world, I'm already selfish. Do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
That's selfish. Why should all this matrix bend to my personal utopia? You tell me that ain't selfish?
It is.
Everybody's making the matrix their utopia. That's why they got their own gated communities and their own clubs and cliques and lodges, because they're turning the matrix into what? Their own utopia. And we're fighting over utopias. Whose utopia is better? Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're fighting to maintain our utopia. But when do we go beyond the selfishness of trying to implement our own personal utopia and the struggles that come along with that? That's a matrix concept now for each one of us to have our own. That's what the matrix is selling each one of us, our own utopia. Every commercial is your own personal utopia. So having your own utopia in this world is not a non-matrix idea. It is a matrix idea. The matrix is Disney World. It's supposed to give you your own pursuit of your individual desire for utopia. That way you don't have to work on yourself. You don't have to confront your own inner self as a person. You can just go out there and buy into your own utopia. I think everybody would agree is going for their own utopia. So notice when you go beyond utopias and you become utopic in how you respond to a world of illusion, of disillusionment. You follow? Where you become the positive vibration that you want to bring to the world and how you actually transform as a person. Because our sadness in our lives come from our disappointment based on our selfishness, right? Because we want the world to be however we want it to be. And when it doesn't come that way, then we're sad. That's our personal disappointment. Instead of saying, well, hold up. Once I give up my attachment to a utopia, now I can become okay with what is. And that's the beginning of happiness and bliss and all this stuff beginning to happen for you. But as long as you attach to something that you feel like is not happening, Buddha said desire is the cause of all suffering. Even if the desire seems like a spiritual desire or a economic desire or a physical desire or moral desire, desire is the cause of all suffering, according to the Buddha. You follow? So when you go beyond the desire, you go beyond suffering and causing suffering. who said the world was supposed to be in any type of way that a person could be so attached to that they find something wrong with anything that is going on in the world? Do you hear me? Who codified the book and signed it and got the original copy of how this world is definitely supposed to be? Who got that book? Because I want a copy of it. But I'm seeing several books with different interpretations and mythologies and philosophies and ideologies and traditions of so many different cultures and societies that are all saying something slightly different. But every individual feel like they have a codex on reality. And because reality doesn't conform to that codex or that codification, now they are sad and they are disappointed. And they want violence and whatever they can to implement their utopia. We had a war of implementation of our utopias. We can't be okay with anybody else. And us that are in a different state of mind, we're still going to war with those people who want to implement their utopia on us, even though we ain't trying to get in one. They say, well, if you all ain't got one, then you're going to have to take ours, right? We got a utopia of sending our children to the white man's school and buying into this reality. This is our utopia, and you better accept this. You know, we're saying, you know, we accept that that's your utopia. You want to live like that. That's your reality. Fine, you do it. That's not enough. They got to go ahead and push that one over on us. So now we at war. We having utopia warfare today. The Muslims got their utopia. The Christians got their utopia. Different denominations of groups, Hebrew Israelites, RBG, the spiritualists, the atheists, everybody got their own utopia. And we're going through a war of utopias instead of everybody finding a state within themselves where they can be okay with others. They can be okay with society as it is.